Marcus Bryant was 11 days away from his family being on the street when his brother found out. 2 jobs, 63 hours a week, and still $4,218 short of the back payments that Wells Fargo had given him 90 days to produce before they initiated foreclosure proceedings on the house on Slauson Avenue, where Marcus had lived for 7 years, and where his wife Denise and their 3 children had built the particular kind of life that is not remarkable to anyone outside it, and is everything to the people inside it. The mortgage broker who had sold Marcus the loan in 2007 was a man named Gary Fulton, and Gary had not explained to Marcus in the specific and accurate way that Gary was required by law to explain the terms of an adjustable rate mortgage. And Marcus, who had been 26 years old and working 2 jobs, then the same as now, and who had believed that buying a house was what you did when you were building something, had signed where Gary told him to sign, and Gary had collected his commission, and the loan had been fine for 4 years, and then the rate had adjusted, and then it had adjusted again. And Marcus had been running at a deficit since 2011 without telling anyone, because Marcus Bryant did not tell people about things he could not fix, and Kobe Bryant had not known about any of it until a Tuesday morning in November, when he called his brother to say happy birthday, and Marcus picked up and said, "Thank you," and his voice was the voice of a man who had been awake for a very long time. Kobe had called at 7:15. He and Marcus spoke every few weeks, and the calls were easy, in the way that calls between brothers who understand each other are easy, which is that there is no performance required, and the small talk is brief, and the real things get said without too much preamble. "How's the house?" he said, because he always asked about the house. Marcus was quiet for a moment. That was slightly longer than it should have been. "Fine," he said. Kobe said nothing. Marcus said, "It's fine." Kobe said, "Is it?" Marcus said there have been some challenges with the mortgage, and Kobe said, "What kind of challenges?" And Marcus said the rate has been adjusting, and Kobe said, "How long?" And Marcus said, "Since 2011. And Kobe said since 2011 is 3 years. And Marcus said, "I know how long 3 years is." And Kobe said Marcus, and Marcus said, "It's handled." And Kobe said, "What does handled mean?" And Marcus said, "It means I'm working on it." And Kobe said, "How much?" And Marcus was quiet. And Kobe said, "I'm not asking because of what you think I'm asking." And Marcus said, "I know why you're asking." And Kobe said, "Then tell me." And Marcus said, $4,218. And then there was a silence on the line, and Marcus said, "I have 11 days. And Kobe said, "Okay." And Marcus said, "I mean it." "Kobe, I'm not asking." And Kobe said, "I know you're not." Kobe called his foundation director from the car. At 8:03, he said, "I need to understand everything about a mortgage in Marcus's name on Slauson Avenue, and I need to understand it today." And his director said, "I'll start right now." What she found over the next 4 hours was not what Kobe had expected. The loan Marcus had signed in 2007 had terms that Gary Fulton had been legally required to explain clearly, and had not explained clearly because Gary Fulton had been working in a mortgage environment in 2007, where the commissions for placing adjustable rate mortgages were significantly higher than for fixed-rate products, and where the pressure from Gary's employer to place those products was significant, and where the oversight that should have caught the pattern of what Gary Fulton and 47 other brokers at his firm were doing had not caught it until 2012, when a class action lawsuit had been filed against the firm and settled in 2014 for $211 million, the distribution of which had gone to 14,000 borrowers who had filed claims. Marcus had not filed a claim. He had not known about the settlement. He had not known because the notice had been mailed to the Slauson Avenue address in 2013, during a period when Marcus had been working nights and his wife Denise had been managing 3 children under 7. And the mail had accumulated in the way that mail accumulates in households where everyone is doing too many things. And the deadline to file had passed, and Marcus Bryant had not received $211 million divided 14,000 ways, but he had received the continuing consequences of a loan that had been sold to him. Improperly, Kobe's director called him at 12:41. She told him all of it. Kobe sat in his car in the parking structure of the practice facility for 22 minutes after the call ended. Then he called Marcus. He said, "I need you to call me back from somewhere." Denise and the kids aren't, and Marcus said, "Why?" And Kobe said, "Because I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to be able to respond without managing how you respond." And Marcus was quiet for a moment, and then he said, "Give me 10 minutes. Marcus called back from the parking lot of the grocery store on La Cienega. Kobe told him about Gary Fulton and the class action and the settlement and the claim that had not been filed, and Marcus was quiet through all of it, the way he was quiet through things that required him to recalibrate. And when Kobe finished, Marcus said, "You found all this in 4 hours." And Kobe said, "My director found it." And Marcus said, and Kobe said, "And there's a legal pathway to file a late claim based on documented failure to receive notice." And Marcus said, "What does that mean?" And Kobe said it means you were entitled to compensation you never received, and that Gary Fulton's firm owes you money. And Marcus said, "How much?" And Kobe said the average distribution was $15,000, but your loan terms were worse than average. And Marcus said, "What does worse than average mean in this context?" And Kobe said, "It means more." And Marcus said, "How much more?" And Kobe said, "The attorney, my director, found things somewhere between 22 and 35,000. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Kobe waited. Marcus said, "I need to think about this." And Kobe said, "Of course." And Marcus said, "I mean the legal part." And Kobe said, "I know." And Marcus said the $4,218. And Kobe said, "I know." And Marcus said, "Kobe." And Kobe said, "I know what you're going to say." And Marcus said, "Then don't make me say it." And Kobe said, "I won't make you say it. And I'm going to take care of the 4,000 anyway." And Marcus said, "I didn't ask." And Kobe said, "I know." And Marcus said, "I mean it. I'm not asking." And Kobe said, "I know you're not, and neither am I." And Marcus said, "That doesn't make sense." And Kobe said, "Yes, it does." The back payment cleared 11 days later. Marcus did not know the exact mechanism by which it cleared. He knew that money appeared in the account that needed it, and he knew where it came from. And he did not talk about it with Kobe because they had both agreed, without saying so, that they were not going to talk about it. He hired the attorney. The late claim took 4 months to process. The settlement arrived in March, a check made out to Marcus Bryant for $29,400, which was at the higher end of what the attorney had estimated, and which represented a partial accounting of what Gary Fulton's firm had taken from Marcus Bryant and 14,000 other people in the specific way that institutions take from people, which is through information asymmetry, and the assumption that the people on the other end of the transaction do not know what they do not know. Marcus called Kobe the day the check arrived. He said it came, and Kobe said, "How much?" And Marcus said, 29,4. And Kobe said, "Good." And Marcus said, "That's all you have to say." And Kobe said, "What else is there to say?" And Marcus said, "You found the class action." And Kobe said, "My director found the class action." And Marcus said, Kobe said, "How are the kids?" And Marcus said, "They're good." Kobe said, "Are they?" And Marcus said, "They're really good." And Kobe said, "Good." Marcus paid off the back payments officially in March. He made one additional payment in April that went directly to principal, and he called Denise from the driveway after making the payment online and said, "We're going to be fine." And Denise said, "I know." And Marcus said, "No. I mean structurally, we're going to be fine." And Denise said, "I know, Marcus. I always knew that." And Marcus said, "I didn't always know that." And Denise was quiet. And then she said, "I know that too. And come inside, it's cold." Gary Fulton had left the mortgage industry in 2014 following the class action settlement and was working in commercial real estate in Phoenix and had not thought about the loans he had placed in 2007 in a long time and would not think about them again specifically because of Marcus Bryant. But Marcus Bryant would think about Gary Fulton exactly once more, which was the day the check arrived. And then he would put it down permanently, because Marcus Bryant was the kind of man who put things down when they were done and built forward with what he had. Denise made dinner that night, the same dinner she made when something important had happened, which was her mother's recipe for oxtail stew that took 4 hours and that she only made when there was something worth the 4 hours. And Marcus sat at the kitchen table and watched her cook, and their 3 children moved through the kitchen the way children move through kitchens, which is without awareness of what the adults are carrying and with their own complete interior lives. And Marcus watched them and thought about 11 days and $4,218 and a class action he had not known about, and a brother who had called at 7:15 on a Tuesday to say, "Happy birthday," and had stayed on the line when the voice was wrong. He did not tell the children anything. They were 9 and 7 and 4. And the 9-year-old understood more than Marcus would have preferred. And the 7-year-old understood some things, and the 4-year-old understood that tonight was oxtail stew, which meant something good was happening, and that was enough. After dinner, Marcus sat at the table while Denise got the children to bed, and he thought about what it meant that a letter had arrived in 2013 and gone unread, and that the deadline had passed, and that he had spent 3 years carrying a weight that had been partly someone else's to carry all along. And he thought about the specific anger of that. And then he let the anger go because it was not productive. And he was not a man who spent time on things that were not productive. And what was productive was the check, in the amount of $29,400, and the mortgage that was current, and the children in the next room going to sleep in a house that was going to remain their house, and Denise coming back to the kitchen and sitting across from him and not saying anything because she could see he was thinking, and she had learned over 12 years of marriage that you let Marcus think. She said, eventually, "Are you okay?" He said yes. She said, "Really okay?" He said, "I think so. Yes." She said, "What did your brother say when the check came?" Marcus looked at the table. He said, "How are the kids?" Marcus said. Denise looked at him. "That's it," she said. "That's it," he said. She was quiet for a moment. She said, Kobe Bryant called you on your birthday to say happy birthday and ended up finding a class action settlement you were owed money from and making sure the back payments were covered. And when the check came, he asked how the kids were. And Marcus said yes. And Denise said, okay. And Marcus said, okay. And they sat at the kitchen table in the house on Slauson Avenue that was going to continue to be their house. And outside it was quiet, the way residential streets are quiet after 9 on a November evening. And inside the 4-year-old was already asleep, and the 7-year-old was probably reading past her bedtime, and the 9-year-old was definitely reading past his bedtime, and the oxtail stew was done, and the dishes were in the sink, and Marcus Bryant was going to be fine. The attorney who handled the late claim was named Patricia Okafor, and she had spent 11 years doing consumer finance litigation. And she had seen the Gary Fulton pattern many times before, which was not the pattern of one bad actor, but the pattern of a system that had been designed to make certain information available to the people who sold loans and unavailable to the people who took them. And she had told Kobe's director when they first spoke that she was glad someone had found this case, because it was exactly the kind of case that did not get found, unless someone was looking, and most people did not know to look. She sent Marcus a letter after the settlement arrived, thanking him for working with her, and noting that she had filed 2 additional late claims for other borrowers from Gary Fulton's firm using the same procedural pathway she had developed for Marcus's case, and that those claims were in process. Marcus read the letter twice. He called Patricia and thanked her, and she said it was her job, and he said, I know. And thank you anyway. And Patricia Okafor had been doing consumer finance litigation for 11 years, and she had seen the Gary Fulton pattern many times before, which was not the pattern of one bad actor, but the pattern of a system that had been designed to make certain information available to the people who sold loans and unavailable to the people who took them. And she told Kobe's director when they first spoke that the late claim pathway she was going to use for Marcus had been available since 2014, and that she had filed 17 claims using it over the past year, and that every single one of them had been successful, because the legal basis was solid, and the failure to receive notice was documentable. In every case she had seen, and she said the only reason these claims did not get filed was that people did not know they could be filed, and the only way people found out was if someone who knew they existed told them. She sent Marcus the settlement agreement in March. He read it at the kitchen table on a Saturday morning while Denise was at the grocery store and the children were still asleep, and the house was quiet, the way the house was quiet before 7 on weekends, which was the only time Marcus Bryant had to think without managing something. And he read the agreement twice, and then he sat with it for a while and thought about, if this story moved you, drop your city and country in the comments below. And if you believe that the things done to our families in the dark deserve to come back into the light, please hit that like button and subscribe. Click the video on your screen right now for another story that will stay with you.